Schlechter wie beim Eiskunstlauf, und da ich nicht weiß, wie meine Gegner aussehen, kann ich nie einschätzen, wo ich stehe. Und
They have more applause in America than and more appreciation in America than they have in Germany.
Andreas Münzer, the man who was already dead and didn't know it. Not everything that seems to be, is. March 1996. Andreas Münzer steps onto a stage at a competition in Germany with 3% body fat. Under the blinding lights, his body looks sculpted by a mad god obsessed with perfection. Every vein explodes under skin so thin you could read a newspaper through it. Are you enjoying this story, Andreas Münzer? Then support the channel with your subscription. Attention! 94.8% of the people who watch these videos are still not subscribed. If you're part of that group, take the opportunity and subscribe now. It's free. And that way you'll keep receiving amazing stories about the greatest legends of professional bodybuilding. And there's more. At the end of the video, you'll find other epic stories just like this one. Don't miss it. The audience falls into absolute silence. It's not admiration. It's horror disguised as respect. Andreas smiles, turns, poses. At that exact moment, his liver is necrotizing inside his body. His heart beats only because it hasn't realized it should stop. His kidneys have crystallized like stones. The blood in his veins is so thick it can barely circulate. Andreas Münzer is dead. They just forgot to tell his body. And in 48 hours, biology will collect its debt. March 14th. Munich University Hospital. 2:43 in the morning. A body covered by a white sheet rests on a gurney. The tag on the right big toe reads, Münzer, Andreas. Cause of death, multiple organ failure. When the medical examiners open that body hours later, one of them will run out and vomit in the hallway. Another will need psychological leave for 2 months. What they'll find won't be a human body. It will be a battlefield where vanity fought against biology and biology lost, but took the host along with it. Andreas's liver weighs 7 kilograms and 800 grams, covered with tumors that look like rotten grapes. It should weigh 1.5 kilograms. His heart is so enlarged it looks like it's been inflated like a balloon about to burst. The autopsy report will have 57 pages. 57 pages describing what happens when you torture a human body until it begs for death. But let's forget the ending for a moment. Let's go back to the beginning, because Andreas Münzer wasn't born a monster. He was created. Carefully, methodically, by an industry, by a culture, and worse still, by himself. Styria, Austria, 1964. Andreas is born under a gray winter sky. Third child of a family where love is a word nobody pronounces out loud. His father, Wilhelm, is a metalworker, a man who measures 42 centimeters of biceps and believes that the weak don't deserve space in the world. His mother, Helga, cleans houses for the rich and comes home every night smelling of chemicals and silent shame. Andreas grows up in a 2-room apartment where 6 people share 1 bathroom, and the walls are so thin you can hear the neighbors breathing. He learns early that in that house, attention is earned with strength. His older brother Klaus has broad shoulders and quick fists. He receives praise from his father. Andreas is scrawny. He receives silence. At 13, Andreas weighs 40 kilograms. At school, they call him Knochengerüst, walking skeleton. During recess, 3 bigger boys drag him behind the gym and make him take off his shirt. They laugh, counting his ribs. 24 visible ribs, one of them shouts. It's a record! Andreas goes home with his shirt torn and dry eyes. He doesn't cry. Crying is for the weak. That night, he locks himself in the bathroom and for the first time punches his own reflection in the mirror. The glass cracks, his fist bleeds, and something in him awakens. A hunger, a rage, a silent promise carved in blood. Nobody will laugh anymore. 16 years old. Andreas enters the Eisenwerk gym for the first time. The place smells of oxidized sweat, testosterone, and desperate dreams. The owner, Günther Schwarz, former Olympic lifter with destroyed knees and nostalgia for glory, looks at that stick of a boy and almost laughs. Almost. Until he sees his eyes. Those eyes, Günther will say 20 years later in an interview few saw, belong to someone willing to die to prove something. I should have closed the door in his face, should have said no. But I saw in him what I was, and that killed me inside afterward. Andreas trains like someone possessed. 5 in the morning until 7. Every day, no exceptions. Sick, with fever, with hands bleeding from blisters that turned into calluses. Günther opens the gym one day at 4:30 in the morning and finds Andreas sleeping in the locker room. I passed out yesterday after training, Andreas says simply. Woke up and continued. In 6 months, he gains 18 kilograms of muscle. His body transforms. And for the first time in his life, Andreas Münzer sees something different in people's eyes. Respect, fear, desire, and that is like heroin running through his veins. But natural muscles aren't enough. They're never enough in this sport. At 19, a veteran named Kurt takes him backstage after a junior competition. You have genetics, Kurt says, lighting a cigarette. But genetics don't win titles. Chemistry wins. He opens a briefcase. Inside, vials of crystalline liquid, trenbolone, testosterone, deca, durabilin, names that sound like promises of transformation. Everyone uses, Kurt continues. The difference is who uses more and who has the courage not to stop. Andreas hesitates for 3 seconds, just 3. Then he sticks the needle in his right glute and pushes the plunger. And with that gesture, he crosses a border from which he'll never return. The results are obscene. In 8 weeks, Andreas gains 12 kilograms of muscle mass. His shoulders explode. His arms grow 5 centimeters in circumference. He looks in the mirror and finally, for the first time in his life, likes what he sees. The problem is that liking isn't enough. He needs to love, needs to be addicted, needs more. The cycles increase, from 8 weeks to 12, from 12 to 16. Then Andreas simply stops taking breaks. He stays on perpetually. His body never rests, never recovers. Trenbolone, testosterone, winstrol, halotestin, anavar, primobolan. He stacks compounds like a mad chemist assembling formulas to create the impossible. And it works. My God, how it works. At 23, Andreas competes in the German championship, and the photos spread through the underground world of bodybuilding like fire and dry gunpowder. Who is this Austrian? Everyone asks. He's not human, others answer. But there's a cost. There's always a cost. His girlfriend at the time, Karen Weber, will give a devastating interview years later. Andreas woke up every night screaming, she'll say with red eyes. Horrible nightmares where he'd shrink, become skinny again, and everyone would laugh. He'd sweat so much the sheets would be soaked. His heart beat so fast and hard, I could see his chest pulsing in the dark. One night he vomited blood in the sink. I begged him to see a doctor. He looked at me and said, "If I stop, I go back to being nothing. I'd rather die being someone." Karen pauses, swallows hard. He was being literal. I just didn't understand. In 1990, Andreas moves to Munich. There, he finds a new level of obsession. 2 workouts a day, fasted cardio for 90 minutes every morning, diet measured to the gram, chicken, rice, egg whites, no deviation, ever. He carries a precision scale in his bag and weighs food in restaurants. Friends stop inviting him out. It was impossible to be with him, one of them will say. Everything was about physique. Everything. He didn't have normal conversations. Only talked about training, diet, next competition. It was like being with a robot programmed for a single function. But the results are undeniable. Andreas develops a level of definition nobody had seen before. 3% body fat. Some say 2.5. Every muscle fiber visible. Extreme vascularity in impossible places, veins in the lumbar region, on the abdomen, even on the calves. He doesn't look human. He looks like an anatomical illustration from a medical book that came to life and decided to compete on stages. The Austrian perfection, the magazines call him. What they don't call, what nobody wants to call, is what he really is, a man self-destructing in slow motion while everyone applauds. The diuretics become particularly dangerous. Lasix, aldactone, diazide. Andreas takes massive doses in the weeks before competitions. His goal is to eliminate every last molecule of subcutaneous water. And he succeeds. But with the water go the electrolytes, the sodium, the potassium. His heart starts beating irregularly. Once, 2 days before a competition, he passes out in the locker room, wakes up 15 minutes later and simply continues. "I'm fine," he says. He's not. Nothing about him is fine. But he no longer knows how to distinguish. Backstage, whispers grow. "Andreas is going to die on stage," says one competitor. "It's just a matter of when." Another athlete tries to talk to him. "You need to stop, brother. Look at yourself. You're yellow. Your eyes are yellow." Andreas laughs. "It's the lighting." It's not the lighting, it's jaundice. His liver is failing and painting his body yellow from the inside out. But he doesn't stop. Can't stop. Because if he stops, if he slows down, if he lets the obsession go for 1 second, he'll have to face the truth. He destroyed his entire life chasing validation from strangers. February 1996. Andreas is preparing for the Grand Prix of Germany. He's in absurd shape. Better than ever, they say. But something is wrong. He feels it. Constant abdominal pain that he ignores. Nausea that he attributes to extreme diet. Fatigue that he compensates with ephedrine and caffeine. His body is sending distress signals. He interprets them as weakness and increases intensity. March 12th. Andreas wakes up with a stabbing pain in his stomach. He vomits. Blood. A lot of blood. His girlfriend calls emergency. At the hospital, doctors run tests and turn pale. "We need to do surgery now," they say. "Your organs are failing." Andreas is taken to the surgical center. 21 doctors take turns trying to save him. When they open his abdomen, the chief surgeon needs a moment. What he sees shouldn't exist in a living body. Everything is necrotic, rotten, destroyed. They try. For 13 hours they try. But there's nothing to be done. The temple of perfection Andreas built collapses from the inside out. At 2:43 in the morning on March 14th, his heart finally acknowledges defeat and stops. Andreas Münzer, 31 years old, 3% body fat, the most defined bodybuilder in history, dies on a surgical table while doctors covered in blood stand in absolute silence. One of them will say later, "I've never seen anything like it. It was as if every cell in his body was screaming in pain." The autopsy report becomes legendary in medical circles. Liver with multiple tumors weighing almost 8 kilograms. Hypertrophied heart with walls so thick there was barely room for blood. Crystallized kidneys. Stomach with perforating ulcer. Blood that wouldn't coagulate. Pathologists estimate Andreas was technically dying for at least 18 months. But he continued. Training, competing, smiling for cameras, a corpse that didn't know it was dead yet. The news shocks the bodybuilding world, but doesn't change it. Athletes cry in interviews and then return to heavy cycles. Magazines do special editions about the dangers of the sport and then put the next impossible physique on the cover. Because the machine doesn't stop, never stops. And there will always be another Andreas, another scrawny boy with something to prove, another body willing to be destroyed on the altar of perfection. At the funeral, in a small church in Styria, fewer than 20 people attend. His father doesn't go. "He chose that life," Wilhelm says simply. Karin is there, destroyed. "I loved him," she whispers to the closed casket. "But he never loved himself. Not for one day. And perhaps that's the most brutal truth of all. Andreas Münzer pursued physical perfection because he hated who he was. And when he finally achieved that perfection, he realized he still hated himself. Except now there was nothing left besides the muscles. No personality, no dreams, no future. Just a sculpted and hollow body that was already dead inside long before the heart stopped. Today, more than 20 years later, Andreas's photo still circulates. The impossible body, the obscene definition. Young athletes look and think, I want that. What they don't know, what nobody tells them, is that body was already a tomb, and that sometimes the perfection you see isn't glory. It's agony. It's documented self-destruction. It's a man dying in public while everyone applauds and asks for an encore. Are you enjoying this story, Andreas Münzer? Then support the channel with your subscription. Attention, 94.8% of the people who watch these videos are still not subscribed. If you're part of that group, take the opportunity and subscribe now. It's free, and that way you'll keep receiving amazing stories about the greatest legends of professional bodybuilding. And there's more. At the end of the video, you'll find other epic stories just like this one. Don't miss it. Andreas Münzer didn't die in a hospital in Munich. He died years before, the first time he stuck a needle in his body and decided that external validation was worth more than his own life. The rest was just his body taking time to understand the message.